Hello, hello. First of all, can people hear me? Because I think we are live. So please let me know in the comments if you can hear me. We had a bit of technical issues before, so hopefully they have been resolved. So there we go. Awesome. Well, great to see you all here. Thank you for joining this this live stream. And we have a packed agenda tonight because, as you've probably seen already, there were elections in Germany. And right on your screen now, I am sharing a map of Germany to make it very clear what these elections were about. So for anyone confused, these were not federal elections, not or whatever, like national elections. They were not national elections. These were state elections. So right on the screen, you can see Thuringia or Thüringen in German and Saxony, Sachsen in Germany. And both of these states had their local regional elections, and that is what we are talking about today. And I'm not doing this alone. We have two awesome guests to join us. So first, from now soon onwards, we will have Simone from the EU and U. And later also, and this is a big moment for the EU Made Simple too, we have the chief political editor for Deutsche Welle, who will join us at 7:45 today to talk about everything. So two awesome guests, and we're really excited to talk about them, about everything that happened this evening, or actually today during the voting. Anyway, but without further ado, let's get the first guest on here, get started straight away. This is Simone Scibelli. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He is from the EU and U. Follow them on Instagram if you like him, or if you want to see more about them. And he has done his thesis all about populism in Germany. So populism, populist parties in Germany, which we're very excited to get into today. So without further ado, Simone, I think you are now here. Hi, how are you? Thank you for joining the live stream.
Hi, Lambertus. Thanks a lot for having me today. So I'm really pleased to be here and also to actually talk about this amazing topic, at least for me.
Awesome. Well, let's jump straight into it, Simone. So we do have a little bit of delay for everyone here, so bear with us. But I think it should work fine during this live stream. Simone, how do these elections work? So there are two provinces in Germany, and they voted. Is that correct, or could you explain the process?
So Sorry, go on. Sorry. I think there might be a bit of delay.
Simone, go on. Explain ahead. What happened today?
Okay. So basically today there will be two Bundesländer, so two states in Germany that will decide about the composition of their state parliament and also of the minister president. So they're actually first minister of the state. These elections are usually take place every 5 years for states, but there is only one state that is actually takes every 4 years, or is old every 4 years. And voters have, when they reach the ballot box, they have two pieces of paper. So they cast the first vote that is actually for a candidate, so a personalized candidate of the 88 single-member constituencies that actually make up the Thüringen, and the 120 that make Saxony. And then they actually, the ones who wins, who gets elected, is the one that receives the most of these votes and gets elected. And this is actually called the direct seat. Then there is a second vote for the state party list. So the seats are allocated according to a proportion of the second votes, and it's called list seats. Mm-hmm. So the direct seats actually are subtracted from the party's list seats, so that other parties receive seats in compensation. If there is, let's say, if there is a party that obtains more direct seats than list seats. I know it's quite complicated, but as many of the electoral systems in Europe and in general, I think, in the world.
I think so too, Simone, because what I think is very interesting in Germany, and for everyone here watching us, they're really trying to mix two concepts in democracies, right? Because you have the direct representation, which is the first past the post also in England that they have, because the winner of all the little, what do you call them, constituencies within Thuringia would have one person that directly makes into the parliament. And then they have proportional representation too, which is the second vote, correct? Where then there's lists.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think
Exactly. We call that the German system is actually called personalized proportional representation, because there is the first past the post as a personal, so he has votes for a person that is actually directly chosen, as you correctly mentioned, and this should, in principle, should actually ensure a closer relationship between the voters and their representatives. But actually, it's not. In reality, it's not like this, because people tend to choose their representatives because they actually are from that party, of that other party. So there is a sort of overlapping of the two votes in general.
Right. So I think for the audience, the key thing to realize here, and it's really interesting, definitely look into it. And I'm releasing a video tomorrow morning to explain exactly this. People in Germany always get 2 votes, right? And those 2 votes, then there's a big calculation that happens, and this then determines the parliament. And let's, Simone, let's start straight with Sachsen. So Sachsen is a province at the very eastern Germany, and they voted today. And this is a Prognose in German, which means what's the English word? It's not final.
Projection.
Projection. Thank you.
Projection. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. A projection. And as you can see here, I mean, Simone, again, some people might have been living under a rock. So at the moment here, the first place is CDU. Who is CDU? Maybe quickly.
Yes, quickly explaining, it's the CDU is the Christian Democrats. It's the party from Angela Merkel, basically. And it's been the long-lasting governing party for the past 20 years in Germany, at least federally speaking. Now, after Angela Merkel, she left the place to a coalition government, at least federally, from SPD, Die Grüne, so the Socialists, the Greens, and the Liberals.
Right.
But it's been very much of a dominant political force also in the past years after the unification in East Germany, because it was advocating for the stabilization of the economy that was actually coming out from a socialist, let's say, system, and was diving into the capitalist democracy that actually Germany lives in now.
Interesting.
And it was also advocating for economic recovery, so market reforms, the integration of East Germany into the whole European Union. And so CDU gained a lot of consensus, at least in the 90s, but then it was very soon challenged by Die Linke. That was the natural heir of the Socialist Unity Party. That was the former ruling party in the DDR. And then Die Linke was very easy challenging the CDU, because capitalizing that nostalgia of the DDR time where everything was under control and there was no dissatisfaction with economics and stuff. But very interestingly, we have that in the past 2 decades, and especially since the European sovereign debt crisis in 2013, 14, that kind of period, you have a new challenging parties like AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, Alternative for Germany, and currently now, very recently, in the past 8 months, there was a spin-off from Die Linke, and there is Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, so alliance from Sarah Wagenknecht.
Yeah.
She's actually a daughter of East Germany, because basically she was a militant of the Socialist Unity Party. And then Die Linke, after a few years, she tried to fill a gap in the German political arena. That was, why not merging left-leaning stances in economics and right-wing stances?
I know, it's insane. But Simone, I want to stop you for a minute, because we're going all over. So we have the CDU, so Merkel's party, the center right in Germany, the ones that are also leading in the national polls, by the way. So that's the left black one, and they're just ahead of the AfD. And again, for those been living under a rock, and maybe Simone, maybe explain a little bit about who are the AfD, and especially who's do you know who's leading them there? Maybe a little bit about their leadership. Yeah.
So basically, in AfD, it's a party. It's been it's a recent party. It's only 10 years old, actually this year or last year in 2013 was actually established. And it has gone through a radical change because it was born as a party that was liberal in terms of economic stances and was Eurosceptic. And was just established by Bernd Lucke. He's a former professor of economics at university in Germany. And he's been quite of a character in Germany.
But was it established in Eastern Germany, Simone? Was it established in Eastern Germany, or yeah?
Yeah, basically yes. Okay. Yeah, it's a son of East Germany as well.
Okay,
but it's been quite of an interesting metamorphosis, the one of AfD, because since 2015, so after the Angela Merkel policy of welcoming migrants in Germany, there has been a rise into the let's say Islamophobia and also, let's say, intolerance towards the diversity in general in Germany. And they and AfD had this kind of metamorphosis, because starting from let's say a protest against the economic stances of Germany towards the resolution of the sovereign debt crisis, it went towards more of a cultural right-wing party. So triggering those kind of mechanisms that actually make a populist party, basically. So it's been a very strong metamorphosis, and especially in Thüringen, for example, it's the first party in Thüringen, basically.
Hold on, Simone. We're in Sachsen right now, but I guess,
now we are in Sachsen. Yes,
yeah.
Now we are in Sachsen.
So just for our viewers, very quickly, because some new ones might have joined. Oh, wait, I'm looking at the one here. So just so that we know what we're talking about, we are talking about, is this working? This doesn't seem to be working. Here we go. Let me do this again. Bear with us, everyone. Here we go. So we are talking about Saxony here. So this very eastern province right there. And Thuringia is where the other election took place. So let's maybe, before we go there, finish off Saxony.
Yeah. Let's finish Saxony. So basically, Saxony, it's a state in which we have that basically AfD. It's the second power, but it's actually performing well because you have that. East Germany in general is actually neglected, is perceived as neglected from the federal government, and so they want a change.
But Simone, are they? Maybe let me challenge you. Do you think they are?
To be honest, there are plenty of people, Germans in particular, German political scientists, that deem that the integration and the unification of Germany is not concluded at all. And it actually it's a bit like plenty of the countries in Europe. I'm from Italy, so you have that there is this divide between the north and the south, or the United Kingdom is a bit like the same, north and the south. So it's normal that there are, with countries that have this particularly difficult history in terms of unification, you have this kind of divides that continue to persist, especially economically and socially. And it must be said that once East Germany was industrialized, but when it was reunificated with West Germany, it was deindustrialized. Now unemployment starting to rise. Now issues are much better, but still there is still a lot of diversity between West Germany and East Germany.
Yeah, I mean, and this is maybe the segue. So we talked about number one in Sachsen, which is CDU at the moment. Things might change. We have AfD, number two. So both of these are, I mean, the CDU center-right, AfD is far-right. But then we have an interesting case, which is the third party here. And I know you already started talking about it, but maybe, I thought it was really interesting. You said BSW, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, is left-wing with conservative policies too. So how does that work? Maybe explain a little bit what they are. Yeah,
I mean, it's a strange animal for any political scientist that tends to classify parties from a left-right segment. So it's quite complicated to position it a bit better. But basically, what Sarah Wagenknecht does and has done, it's to be very left-leaning in terms of economic policies. So, for example, especially at the federal level, she promised to increase the salaries She promised to actually bring down unemployment. So it's actually any normal socialist party would have done the same.
Right.
Well, actually, it's very interesting. It stands in terms of social and cultural and also foreign policy. For example, you have that she is very pro-Russia in the sense. So she has some sympathies for Russia, a bit like the colleagues of AfD. So that's why here you can tell that there is a connection between the left and right, like a circle, that at the end they touch the poles when you reach the extremes. Then you have that they want to stop giving support to Ukraine, especially in terms of military equipment and also financially speaking, because there are priorities, that is Germany. And we also have recently, we had this statement by Christian Lindner, that is the current finance minister in Germany, and he's from FDP, that actually you don't see here.
No,
it's not even on the list. Why? Because it's pretty actually probable that they won't make to actually go over the 5% hurdle that there is to access the parliament, the state parliament, and it's not the first time. And it was actually the moment in which it happened. It was the moment in which Christian Lindner, the current secretary of the FDP, came to the stage. Let's put it like this. And I was just mentioning that it was still a bit. He declared that it's controversial also in Germany to continue to support Ukraine financially because they don't have the money to do that. Also because of constitutional constraints, but that's another story.
Simone, we have questions in the chat, by the way, and I would love to get people in a chance to ask you questions while you are here. And everyone in the chat, just quickly, if you do want your questions answered, please tag me so I know that there's a question. And if you want to be 100% sure that your question gets answered, then a super chat would be needed. But please always tag me so I can quickly see the questions. Tag EU Made Simple, of course. So first question here from Double Yikes. And let me read it out to you. How many positions in local or regional elections would AfD need to hold to be able to force or persuade a deal with the CDU on governance? So we're getting into coalitions. The AfD.
Yes. Okay. So coalitions are quite problematic in general, especially in Germany, because basically AfD has three powers in his hand. It's three powers that could actually leverage. So the first one is that if it's able to gather 1/3 of the seats, and actually possible apparently, it could have a minority opposition. So, for example, there is the need of a qualified majority in state parliaments and also in federal parliament, in the Bundestag, to actually change the state constitution, also, or to name judges for the state court. So basically, it has a big power in its hands. The second one is that usually, if it's able to gather the first place, so to be the first power in the state, it can actually name the president of the state parliament. Of course, it has to be approved by vote from the whole parliament, but still, it can actually name it. And we have to say the last thing is that usually mainstream parties in Germany are working on a so-called Brandmauer, that is in the translation is the firewall against AfD. So they will actually try to pursue any kind of coalition negotiation with any party but AfD. And this is going to be the case, for example, in Saxony, where CDU, already I was reading in DPI, in the Deutsche Presseagentur, that CDU is actually willing to start a coalition with SPD and Die Grüne. So with the Greens and the Socialists.
Which is a possibility here, right? It shows it already that this is a possibility.
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. And also, I have to say, it would be quite problematic to explain to voters of CDU. Because currently, SPD and Die Grüne are actually the parties of the coalition government, or the federal coalition government. And so you have that this is a big deal for CDU in terms of credibility, because they have positioned themselves as one of the credible, the only credible let's say, opposition to the Ampel coalition, so the traffic light coalition.
Yeah,
so
because
it will
Simone,
be quite problematic.
yeah, because it's funny. I live in Germany, right? So I see interviews of big politicians. So the boss, the CDU, head of the CDU is Friedrich Merz, and he also said, he made it very clear he'd rather not deal with the Greens. And Markus Söder, he's from the CSU, who works with the CDU. He also said he doesn't really want to work with the Greens. So it would be, yeah.
It will be problematic also because Sarah Wagenknecht as well said that the most dangerous political force in the Bundestag, in the German parliament, is the Greens.
Right. Yeah.
And we have to mention that AfD, it's in the parliament, it's the Bundestag. So telling that the Grüne are actually much more dangerous than AfD tells a big story, I have to say.
Yeah. Simone, I want to get to another question from the chat. This is from a person called HGVD. Thank you very much for being a Patreon, HGVD. And he's asking, is it known how other parties are doing? And are there some interesting smaller parties coming up? Is there anything you'd like to mention on that? I mean, the BSW is a big one, of course. But
yeah. Now it's a big one, but actually it's 8 months old. So it's not a very consolidated party. Then if we look at the other little parties that are actually named in others, usually in the polls, they're actually in the last row in gray, and they're called others.
Yeah,
and they are the old ones that adding up to anyone. If you actually add up every of them, you don't reach the 5%. So. Yeah. They are not very relevant, because you have to actually we have to admit the Germans in general are quite conservative in their positions, apart from the fact that in state parliament, in state elections, state level elections, the turnout is of course lower with respect to the federal elections, but you have that non-established parties have better chances of gathering more votes. Because there is this willingness to experiment, because there is much less at stake in the state parliaments. Because if you look at if you consider the competences of federal parliaments, you have that they work on police, on culture and education. So there are actually much less at stake. For example, they have no power in actually taking over the competence on migration, for example. Even though they are like border states, they still don't have any power on that. Yeah. But probably one of the most relevant things in state elections is that the state elections influence the Bundesrat. The Bundesrat is actually the upper chamber of the German parliament, where actually let's say state representatives are actually there and take the stances of the state they represent.
So Simone, let me hold you back, because I love this. It's really cool for the audience to understand this. So let me first explain the basics. So for example, I think you have 14 Bundesländer in Germany, right?
Yes.
So that means there's 14 state parliaments. So Germany is split up in 14 pieces, and each piece has a state parliament. That's what happened today here in Sachsen on the screen. So one of these states, Sachsen, these are the results. And then, Simone, if I'm correct, the next level would be the Bundestag. So this is the federal parliament for all of Germany. And then you're mentioning that above that, if I'm correct, there's the Bundesrat as a second chamber. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it's a second chamber, exactly. Actually, we cannot say that it's above the Bundestag, but probably they are actually in, let's say, have the same power, even though actually they can. It's not very correct from a constitutional point to say that they have the same power, but still, it's a second chamber that's.
And the second chamber, how is that one put together? The Bundesrat?
So the Bundesrat, it's very much complicated to do this. Okay. But basically, the way in which it takes place, the choice of the representatives are, or usually that they get elected as in the Bundestag, or they're actually the expression of the state parliaments.
Right.
So it depends. It depends. But basically, the Bundesrat is a very complicated part of the German system, and it's actually the one that could, together with the Bundestag, could actually file towards the Constitutional Court a demand of, for example, dissolution of a party.
Right.
because okay, Germany is very delicate and it's also quite cautious in maintaining its democracy, because it was challenged democratically once already.
Yeah.
So they needed to put in place some safeguards in order to keep it together.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting because it's called in German, it's called streitbare Demokratie, or beharrte Demokratie, so militant democracy.
Right.
That is able to self protect itself.
Right.
And
so sorry, Simone, I hate interrupting. I'm just very conscious of time, and I really would love to ask. There's so many cool questions in the chat. And firstly, Politics for Fun, thank you for your super chat. Really appreciate it. And his question is there a comeback chance for Olaf Scholz? Because the SPD, just very quickly as info for everyone here, the ruling government in Germany on a national federal level is the SPD, the red ones on the screen, the Greens, the green ones on the screen, and the FDP, who is not even in this screen because they did so badly. So the SPD here is the big one, because that's where the Bundeskanzler, or the boss of Germany, I'm just going to put it very informally, is from. Is there a comeback chance for him? Because he's losing everywhere.
Yeah, the problem is that it will be pretty difficult to hold together Germany now, especially in 1 year time to the Bundeswahl, so the federal elections. It remains to be seen, because you have to say that plenty of party leaders usually come back, but let's say timidly, very shyly, because let's say there are some parties, for example, FDP, in which the past leader disappeared from the scenes because he actually was very, very sad not entering the federal parliament. So that one was a very serious ground for not coming back. Here, it's actually just a shift of preferences. So maybe there will be a chance for Olaf Scholz to come back. I don't feel enough confident to exclude the possibility of a comeback.
It's not going well for him, though, is it? Let's be honest.
No, it's not. It's not. That's for sure. But actually, because it's not bold enough, in my opinion, in the sense that he tends to, let's say, be guided by the wind. So if polls say that, please, you have to be kinder to Ukraine, he becomes kinder to Ukraine. If he has to be more conservative, he becomes more conservative. So it's quite in the when he tries to balance the different pressure from the different interest groups, is not very able to actually lead to coherence in his positions. So probably that's the big problem of the left in general in the European Union, but also in Germany. So also we have to admit that SPD, as a governing party, it's fine if it performs bad, because when you are in the government and you have hands-on the problems, you cannot solve them all, and that's for sure. Yeah. So it's pretty normal. And also because the state elections could also be regarded as shadow federal elections, in the sense that the parties that are represented in the Bundestag and usually tend to be in the coalition government have to pass a review. So if the test is not met, or for example the preferences are not met, you have an issue and you perform poorly.
I mean, Simone, let's break through the ice, right? I mean, together, SPD, Grüne, and the FDP, who you can't see here, have won less than 15%. I mean, that's insane. I mean, and when we look at Thüringen, we still haven't looked at Thüringen, but it doesn't matter. We'll do that soon. It's a similar story. That I think. Let's park that. I first want to ask all of these questions. So they're not doing well. Next question, though. We have another Patreon question. Villa, thank you for being a patron. And he's asking, what are the current relations between BSW and AfD? Have any of them expressed a willingness to work together? And if not, has BSW expressed another interest?
So basically, that's a pretty difficult question, because
he's known for that. He's known for that.
Yeah, it's quite difficult for two reasons, basically. Both are populist parties, okay? And I would like to open a little parenthesis on populism. populist parties in general have this tendency to portray themselves as the only one party that holds the truth and holds the representation, the total representation of the masses, of the people. So all the preferences and the will of the people are actually enshrined in their policy. So no populist party will tell you, oh yes, I like AfD. They'll hate pluralism. They don't want to be merged with somebody else because they hold the truth. And this truth is actually the will of the people that they think they deem. And there are plenty of people who think that oh yes, populism is actually the cure of representative democracy because it's in crisis and it's actually embodying the direct representation of people. Actually, it's not true, because for the sake of being responsive to the preferences of voters, you neglect what's the greater good of the country, for example. Or just to be concrete, no migration, amazing. Then you have a big problem in demographics in Germany. Or you end up like the United Kingdom, that for a long period after Brexit, they had no people working, doing, let's say, less noble jobs. Let's put it like this.
Yeah.
So, or for example, you have a decreasing population, and you don't have no German, no pure-blood German, as they call, to actually replace them.
So, Simone, I'm going to stop you there again. Before we go to Thüringen, I'd love to have your statement, just a quick answer. Who do you think will form the government in Sachsen while looking at this? Do you think it will be CDU, SPD, Greens, or something else?
Okay, I have to say that if we look at the credibility, I just take the shoes of a CDU leader, okay? The CDU leader would be quite ashamed to coalesce both with Sarah Wagenknecht and Die Grüne. So actually, I would choose the word, actually the less words, that is actually the CDU, SPD, Die Grüne, because being with Sarah Wagenknecht, I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. You know what we're going to do? We're going to ask the chat also. So I'm creating a poll right now about who you think will be the government in Sachsen before we move over to Thüringen. Yeah. So let me just type this out. 1 second. Add one last option. CDU, PSV.
So please be rational actors as the CDU leaders and vote for CDU, SPD, Die Grüne.
Yeah.
That actually is the most likely, I have to say.
Yeah. Anyway, while people are answering that poll, let's continue to Thüringen. Oh my God, time goes quickly. 1 second, let me open Thüringen. Here we go. This is crazy, by the way. Look at that. Yeah, this is insane.
Yes,
anyway,
yes,
what are your first thoughts seeing this?
My first thoughts are, I have to say, trivial. We expected that, because Thüringen, it's the party, the state in which AfD is most powerful. Also, thanks to his leader, the local leader, Björn Höcke. Please let me spend a few words on Björn Höcke.
So Björn Höcke, very quickly, he's the AfD leader, right?
AfD leader, yes, AfD state leader. Okay, so it is really well known to local authorities, especially the courts, the state courts, because he has been fined by the state court to pay, I don't know, few thousand euros because he actually used Nazi wording, Nazi mottos in a public appearance. And actually, he said, "I was not aware of that." And then the judge replied, I knew that you were a history teacher. How couldn't you know that? So basically, we have also to be clear for non-German speakers, and I'm one of them, but still I am trying to learn. German is a very precise language, so has a lot of words. And if you don't use the peculiar one, you get out of the context. There are some particular wording that is actually confined to the Nazi heritage. People don't use it in public.
Right. So just to summarize, so Björn Höcke, the leader of the AfD. So everyone, you can see here, AfD won in Thüringen, right? The biggest party in Thüringen state elections, and their leader is someone called Björn Höcke, like Simone just explained, and he's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, the most extreme member of the AfD that is in a leadership position. Yes.
And
I mean, this is quite fascinating. He won the state. So people must. Yeah.
And just to mention, as I said before, just to remind that he could actually name president of the state parliament, could choose at least. If everything comes like this and remains like this, he could choose, at least try to propose to the parliament, the leader of the state parliament.
All right.
Moreover, another thing that is quite interesting is that Björn Höcke is the leader also of a, let's say, of a current in the AfD that is called Der Flügel. The Flügel in English, it's the wing, and it's the most right-wing wing of the party,
of the AfD,
very radical of AfD, exactly, of AfD. And every leader that tried to suck it and actually to set him aside and from the party, so exclude him from the party, was the one leaving the party. Just to mention. And he's also the one that is actually responsible from this metamorphosis from a Eurosceptical, economically liberal movement into a nativist, anti-Islamic, and climate denialist party.
Right.
This is actually what we are witnessing at the moment. And he's the one that actually has created this set of enemies, of villains of the German people that are actually immigrants, Islamists, and European bureaucrats.
Right. It's super interesting. I could talk with you all day, Simone. The only issues, we only have a couple more minutes of your time. So before we have the next guest, so let me ask you a big thing that like really shoots off the page here. The left, boom, and BSW up. Is BSW simply taking votes from the left, or is that a wrong interpretation?
No, actually, it's not a wrong interpretation, because Sarah Wagenknecht did a very wise choice. Because we have to say that in Thüringen, in the past elections, and I'll tell you this, that it's actually from a paper, in the past elections, you have that populist stances are basically, the causes of populism are basically two. So economic distress, so discontent, and cultural backlash, cultural change. And there is these three political scientists that assessed that in Thüringen, in particular, the biggest driver of the vote that actually gained AfD was because of the cultural backlash, of preventing the cultural backlash, actually protecting the cultural heritage of traditional Germany, of the traditional rural and deindustrialized East Germany. And this is what actually Sarah Wagenknecht understood as well in Thüringen. That's why she performed so well. So probably, even though it's not evident, she took also some of the votes of that discontent from the left, especially from SPD, of that liberal stance, and probably also from CDU.
Right. Okay. I mean, it's remarkable, because she went from 0%. I mean, she didn't even exist like what, 9 months ago, and now
8 months ago.
8 months ago. Sorry, and she went from 0 to 15.6%. It's insane.
Yes. Insane.
Yeah. Simone, any maybe tell the audience before you leave us where they can find you. I mean, you're from the EU, and maybe you want to say some last words about that before I let you go. And thank you for your
input. So just few words about EU and U. It's an association of students basically, and also recent graduates. We especially work on raising awareness about European Union, and a bit like EU Made Simple. Probably in this sense we are actually concurrent, but still we work especially on bringing the European Union nearer to voters, especially to young voters. About me, you can find me on Instagram. My name is pretty complicated because it's in German. It's called Träumer der Realität. Maybe you can find me in the description of the post.
If we haven't put Simone, if we haven't put it in yet, put it in the chat later when you're watching. That'd be good.
Yes, I will for sure. Yeah. So thank you very much for having me. If you have any more questions, you can send me DM on Instagram.
Awesome, Simone. Great having you on. Have a great evening, and thank you. Like I said, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. A pleasure for me too.
Right.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. So we have our next guest coming in 5 minutes. So it's very exciting because we're going to have Michaela Küfner on, and she's the chief political editor for Deutsche Welle. I actually think she's already on. So without further ado, I think I can, yeah, Michaela, I think you're here, right? Can you hear me?
Yes, hi. I was actually just trying to fix the technology to talk to you.
Ah, really?
Hi.
Hi. You're a bit early, but we would love to talk to you earlier. So thank you for making it to the EU Made Simple live stream. Really appreciate it. It's a big honor for us at EU Made Simple to have someone like you on the stream. And I'm not sure if you can see the live stream, but I'm basically sharing the results in Thüringen. And we'd love to ask you what you think of the results, and maybe explain what happened in Thüringen, if that's all right for you.
Well, in Thuringia, we saw an outright victory for the far-right AfD party. This is not that terribly surprising because the polls had been pointing in that direction for quite some time. And this really is a historic first for the far-right AfD party here in Germany. This will send a shock through the nation. At the same time, I want to stress, nationwide, the far-right AfD is at about 16%. Here it's about 30%. We'll see what the night will bring. So in terms of trying to project this onto Germany as a whole, it would be the tail wagging the dog, rather.
Right. But I mean, they won massively. And the big question I'm getting from the audience that's watching at the moment is all about, can they form a coalition in Thüringen? They're the winner, but no one wants to work with them. Or is that wrong interpretation?
Yeah, nobody will work with them, that's for sure. You have all the parties, the other parties vowing they would not enter a coalition. I'm here in the regional parliament of neighboring Saxony, which also went to the polls today, but we'll get to that. But clearly they have no chance of actually being in government. But coming first in an election for a party which is led by Björn Höcke, their regionally, he can legally be called a fascist. This is a part of the party that is being looked into by German domestic security because they are seen as extreme right, not just far right. The same is for neighboring Saxony, where I am right now. So there's no chance they will be in government. At the same time, you can't ignore almost a third of voters who went to the polls. And we've seen a very large turnout. It really has risen as upward of 74%. So that was a pretty big show of voters really voicing their concerns and also their unhappiness with the central government, because 2 out of 3 parties who currently run Germany didn't even make it into the parliament of Thuringia.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think it's very interesting what you just said, right? Because a third of the people in Thuringia, they voted for the AfD. And there's this red wall against the AfD that no one will work with them. But maybe a very open question is that correct? Is that even democratic, so to speak? Or that's the argument that the AfD keeps playing? Is that a right argument or not?
Well, let's put it this way. Germany has a proportional system. So you see proportional backing of parties. Everybody has the right to vote for whichever party they want to, as long as they are part of the political spectrum, which the far-right AfD is. But at the same time, there's a debate whether there should be a process to try and get them banned, because that's why German domestic intelligence is looking into them. They might be violating the constitution. They are accused of undermining democracy itself. So there's a right to vote for whoever you want, but there's no duty by other parties who have a mandate from their own voters to go into a coalition with others. I mean, let's just remind ourselves that going into coalitions can cost you very dearly in terms of political support as well.
Right. I mean, but the difficulty will be for the other parties, I assume, is finding a coalition without the AfD, right? Because where will the majorities come from? I mean, if I look at this page, CDU, SPD, BSW seems like the only possibility, or what do you think? Yeah.
Yes, that will be a very tricky one, particularly when they start talking about content. The far-right AfD isn't just anti-migration. There we've seen, but they are also anti-supporting Ukraine, and some of those policies are echoed within the Bundesländer. It's a party that basically splintered off from the left party, and a leading figure there left the left and has now basically crushingly taken voters from the left in Thuringia, but also here in Saxony. But it's also taken voters from the far right AfD party. So Sarah Wagenknecht, it's only a couple of months old. It's a very small party, around about 100 real members, and they are really proving to be in line with or representing the sentiment of a lot of people, which is a lot of frustration in particularly those two eastern states.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe just looking at, we have an audience watching, so if I keep watching away, it's basically because I'm scanning questions, Michaela. I'm not ignoring you.
I'm going to put some light on for you as well, so do keep talking to me, but I've set this up the wrong way, so I'm going to try and set this up properly.
Okay, great.
But I can talk and
Perfect.
fiddle at the same time. No
so
worries.
I'm setting the questions. We've got a couple hundred viewers watching now, and hopefully we'll have more later. And one of them is asking, from Sebastian Grunfeld, why does the CDU not ask its voters whether or not they should work with the AfD? It's a bit of an interesting one. Not sure if that would work, but what do you think about that approach?
Well, the CDU, the Conservative Party, stands for Christian Democratic Union, and the CDU itself tried to create a difference between, or this newly launched post-Merkel CDU is led by someone called Friedrich Merz, who's a former adversary of Angela Merkel, the former chancellor, and he tried to shift it further to the right, in the sense of further into conservatism again. It was felt that it was too far on social democrat, more kind of center-left territory. And now the conservative CDU party wants to maintain what is called a firewall against the extreme right. They do not want to be seen cooperating with fascists. And I'll just remind everyone that the leader of the far-right AfD party in the state of Thuringia can legally be called a fascist. And he's also anti-business, actually. He just told a bunch of medium-sized company leaders who published a letter and basically called on people to vote for diversity, reminding people that the wealth created in Germany is also thanks to skilled workers coming from abroad. He basically told them where to go and said, I hope that you run out of business. So I think that is a distinct difference also between the kind of Trumpist, populist right-wing agenda, anti-migration, and what you're seeing here with the far-right AfD party, that it's a very different political culture, and seeing business as an enemy it's kind of a left position as well that he's taking there, that big business is to blame for social inequality.
Let's move the conversation a little bit to the SPD, Grüne, and FDP, because they are, for people watching, and if you've been living on her rock, they are ruling Germany at the moment. That's the ruling Ampel coalition. They've done badly here. I mean, the SPD dropped, the Greens dropped out of the entire parliament in Thüringen, and the FDP is on 1.2%. What, in your eyes, is the future of this coalition?
This coalition will stay together because they have nowhere to go, and these figures are not representative. I have to stress that this poll is not representative of what we're seeing in the general polling in Germany. So it's the exception from the rule. Having said that, for a party that has the finance minister, the pro-business Free Democrats, their leader Christian Lindner, for the FDP not even to show up on the political radar anymore here in Saxony. They are amongst the bracket of others. And for 2 out of 3 parties to be thrown out of the Thuringian parliament together, who currently sit in Berlin and make policy for Europe's largest economy, that is quite a dressing down at the ballot box. But these are rather small states, a couple of million people. True, Germany has 83 million inhabitants. It is not representative for Germany, but it will continue the criticism of the so-called traffic light coalition, because it's red, yellow, green, which already are seeing, particularly Olaf Scholz is seeing an all-time low in approval ratings for his job as German Chancellor.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have a question here from Eentje van Meij. Thank you for your question. And he's asking you is, why is it that the far ends of the political spectrum do so well in East Germany?
The short answer is because there's a deep distrust of parties of the center. They are seen as the establishment. That's also how the far-right AfD continue to try and frame them. So what is a big tent party or former big tent parties in terms of the Conservatives, the Social Democrats, and also to a certain degree the Greens ahead of the last elections, to the far right, they are seen as establishment and kind of a political adversary also in the sense of how the political system works. And here, particularly in the East, there is a resentment, there is a huge level of frustration. Interestingly, unemployment rates in East and West are about the same, like between 5 and 6%, so there's no huge difference. The pensions are now the same, wages aren't quite the same, but cost of living is cheaper in the East, so it kind of evens out to a certain degree. But this more than 30 years after German reunification, there still is a sense, and we've seen this in the polling very much, that East Germans feel like second-class citizens. So this is very emotional, and it's very much about where people who live in the East feel left behind within their own country. And clearly, that's where the far right Alternative for Germany party, with its anti-migration agenda, has managed to really activate resentment. And it's interestingly also where particularly Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, the political leader formerly from the Left Party, which is the successor party of the communists here in former East Germany, who traditionally still did very well. They were a very strong political force. I mean, in Thuringia, in the state of Thuringia, there was a state premier from the successor party to the communists. So they still have shaped it also in a positive way, how people perceive it as such, the way people perceive their own identity. And the Left Party was also seen as a party that particularly represents the concerns of people in the East, in the new states, as they're called, the Neue Bundesländer.
Yeah. For anyone new joining, by the way, we're talking with Michaela Küfner. She's the chief political editor for Deutsche Welle. So check the description, make sure you check them out. And Michaela, next question is about our channel, or the channel we run is all about the EU, right? So of course, these are regional elections or state elections, which are quite small compared to the whole of the EU. But do you think the results like this could have an effect, trickle down, so to speak, on anything on the EU, or do you think it's too small for now?
Everything depends on everything. I mean, if there's something that we've seen over the last couple of years, is that Germany has actually been has successfully managed to avoid the kind of right-wing populism going mainstream, as we have seen in France, for instance, or Italy. So some can argue this is a trend that's arriving late in Germany, at the same time with the historic context. I mean, 85 years ago today, Germany attacked Poland, Nazi Germany attacked Poland. So it's very much a historic moment and a reason for reflection to look back. How can it be that a party whose leader, certainly at Thuringia, can be called a fascist, comes out top in regional elections? So it feeds further into a trend of populism, of anti-migration sentiment in Europe, and also in the context of this terror attack that we saw just over a week ago here in Germany, where rejected asylum claimant from Syria killed 3 people, injured 8 people. That really set off a wave of anti-migration sentiments. It panicked the political center. There was suddenly a competition who can be toughest, and all differentiation between terrorism, asylum, and migration is lost for now in the German debate. And it's events how the fact that events like these can spark such sentiment and such political reactions tells us also that change in all directions can happen rather fast, and also a tilt towards the right can happen pretty fast. And this is now what we've seen in Thuringia, and this will be something that certainly Germany will be doing a lot of soul searching on. Right. Because of the historical context. I mean, the German press will discuss this very differently from the international press, which is, and I think it's completely legitimate, to look at also the election victory here in Saxony, where a conservative state premier is won, who has been critical in the past of Germany's support for Ukraine. That is a very exceptional position to have for someone who's a leading figure in the German conservative CDU. At the same time, this is part of what big tent conservatism means here right now. Now, I spoke to him earlier and he told me that he exactly holds the same position as the Central Party, but he certainly doesn't sound the same. So there's more openness, or there's a huge desire to want to find a peaceful resolution with Russia here in the East, and people here resent that cliche. But the polling shows you that, and if you speak to people on the street, they will much faster come to the point where they say, look, but there's also the Russian side, you have to listen to the Russian side on this. So it's not a clear-cut kind of issue, and they don't want to get dragged into that. So that's what the government of Olaf Scholz is up against, which has just clearly failed to make any kind of impression on voters in these two eastern states that went to the polls. But the short answer is, there's no huge tidal change here. Okay. It's a historic, huge tidal change for Germany, for its internal debate, but it doesn't change the majorities nationally. And we don't have an election system where we're talking about a few states that are particularly important because they're swing states and because of the mass of the election system. Germany has a proportional system. So what the proportion of everyone in Germany wants and perceives to be will be reflected in the central Bundestag, the German parliament, and therefore also the government as a whole.
Because maybe also for the audience, it's quite important to realize, because you keep mentioning proportional, and the population on the East Germany is quite small, right? Compared to the rest of Germany. Would that be the correct interpretation, or? Yeah.
Yes, it's about just less than a third of people live in the East.
Right.
And that, I guess this also adds to the feeling of not having the political say that they would want to have. I mean, I think this will take some very detailed polling afterwards. And clearly the politicians I spoke to here tonight, mainly from the conservative camp, also say that that is the homework that they are taking away. How to really address the sources for this frustration that is a lot higher in the face of often similar outlooks on the economy and on living standards. And there are similar problems actually in East and West, where if you talk about the kind of infrastructure for healthcare. In fact, if you talk about public infrastructure like roads and trains and everything, that's a lot better in the East because it was brought up to standard after reunification. So I guess we also need a bunch of psychologists looking into this. There is a huge resentment of not having enough say in how the country is run. And I have to say, it is true. If you look at leaders, CEOs in Germany, leading businesses, but also top judges, the East is still underrepresented in that.
Thank you for that very, very clear answer. We have another question from the audience. So Villa is asking, thank you for your question, Villa. Can we expect the same results in Brandenburg for the 22nd September elections in 3 weeks?
I don't want to speculate on those, but again, there you have a social democrat running the state, and it will also be, I mean, there the far-right AfD party is also polling very strong, and it will be a very tight race. So the big soul-searching will happen after those elections. I think it will be very interesting to see how political Berlin reacts these coming weeks until the 22nd of September, when Brandenburg goes to the polls. But the trend is similar. If you're looking at it from the outside, there's a similar trend, a level of frustration there, and I'm really curious to see how big the turnout will be, because here it was almost 3/4 of people that actually went to the polls. That's really pretty high.
Yeah. So maybe I'm just going to pick on another answer you mentioned, which I thought was very interesting. For example, the Russia issue and supporting Ukraine financially and with weapons, which apparently, well, the BSW I know and AfD are against financial support and want to look for a peace talks with Putin and Zelensky, etc. But if I'm not mistaken, on a state level, you can't really influence that, right? Isn't that done on a federal level? So how come that was such an issue, or wasn't it such an issue? There's a lot of questions there. Yeah,
it was an issue because that's where the voter sentiment was. It really didn't. I mean, the posters from Sarah Wagenknecht literally read, "Do you want war or peace?" As if you could vote for war or peace in these elections.
Jeez, okay.
And the narrative that both Sarah Wagenknecht but also the far-right AfD party are trying to push is that they are the ones who are calling for talks and nobody else is. It's not true. We just saw a peace conference in Switzerland. We do see efforts from different sides to try and get everybody around a table. At the same time, if that means surrendering parts of Ukraine to Vladimir Putin, that clearly is a price that the far-right AfD and the left are willing to pay. And that's a much bigger strategic question, whether that could be the interest of Europe if you have to hand over a country or parts of a country in Europe to the aggressor. So that part is always left out. And these are very consequential and difficult decisions for Germany and for Europe to take. And this is something where Chancellor Olaf Scholz is clearly also treading on eggshells within his own party, where you have, which traditionally is much more open to talking to Russia. And the reason he isn't right now talking to Vladimir Putin is because there's a sense that there's no point right now. This doesn't seem to be a route that is worth taking, but talks are always and have always been going on in the background. That is something I've heard times and times again from close advisors, both in the foreign ministry and the chancellery.
Very interesting. So we talked about that as being a main issue, or one of the big issues people voted on. What would you say the other issues are that people voted on?
Migration is a key concern.
Yeah.
And interestingly, in the East, there are far fewer people of a migratory background or migrants than in the West. But this is also where social scientists, many PhDs have been written on this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And that when people don't encounter people with other backgrounds, they fear the unknown. It's not explained that simply, though, because what is also taking place here in Germany is that many towns are saying they simply are running out of capacity to take in more migrants. So bringing those numbers down will be crucial for Olaf Scholz to stabilize his own coalition and demonstrate that he has migration under control. Right. And with these blurred lines I spoke about, not bringing these numbers down will, in the light of the Solingen attack that we saw just over a week ago, be seen as being weak on security.
So the last couple of minutes we have, Michaela, quick, if you look at these elections, was anything for you like a surprise, or was there, what stands out to you in these elections as a general question?
What stands out to me is that really big tent parties, the Social Democrats in particular of Olaf Scholz, can really be playing in very different leagues, regionally and nationally, and how, particularly this past week, it really has been incredible, the sense of panic and speed of turning around asylum policies, toughening them, and demonstrating action. We saw a plane with offenders with of Afghan nationality sent back to Afghanistan. If you'd asked me 10 days ago, I would have said there's no way anyone can get this organized in Germany. So that was quite something that probably had an impact here. In terms of these elections, I guess what does stand out is that the conservative CDU, particularly its state premier here in Saxony, Michaela Küfner, by being out in the field, speaking to people tirelessly, and I don't know how many barbecues he did this time, but clearly he's been running a barbecuing campaign,
Right.
has managed to stay ever so slightly ahead of the Alternative for Germany. And while in the past, a lack of charisma didn't seem to be a factor that rules you out from becoming a leading figure in German politics, I guess these times are changing as well.
Just leading, sorry, there's one interesting question I'd still like to ask you, if that's okay. And this is the Joker, and that's his name. But he mentioned, based on your previous answer too, is in his opinion, the AfD and BSW are getting really big because they are anti-immigration. And why do the rest of the parties ignore this question? This is his opinion. Is he right? Do you think immigration was the driver and other parties are ignoring it, like you mentioned about the SPD maybe?
I don't believe that it's completely changed so much, but the other parties, I would have given you a different answer 10 days ago. But since the Solingen attack, it was like a jolt of lightning down the spine of the current governing parties, and they are no longer ignoring this issue. If they were, there was an attack also at the end of May, after which asylum laws were also already tightened, and attempts were launched to change Germany's weapons laws, particularly in relation to knives. Germany doesn't have shotguns really circulating, for instance, like the US or something. It's a completely different kind of level. So I think it's unfair to say that they were ignoring it, but they have suddenly discovered that they need to demonstrate action and need to be seen to act. Even if, and I've spoken to many lawyers, the experts in the field over the past couple of days, real change will take time. Changing EU treaties takes time, but clearly everything seems to be on the table right now, with the leader of the opposition, Friedrich Merz, having called for the government to declare a migration emergency, even trying to really or push the European partners into showing more solidarity. They, of course, are pointing back at him saying, look, it was your chancellor from the Conservative camp in 2015 who didn't close the borders and took that single-handed decision. So without wanting to go into the details of the dysfunctionality of the German asylum system, the issue of migration is something that the parties, both now in the current coalition, but also the key opposition partner, the Conservatives, have realized is something they do not want to be campaigning on in general elections that are happening at the end of September next year.
Right.
So watch this space and watch the next couple of months, whether it continues in this kind of pace. But what is it, And I think this is really something also where we will be looking very closely, whether this creates a sentiment where plurality and attracting foreign talent will become more difficult for Germany if the signals are all essentially anti-migration and potentially xenophobic.
On that note, the final question we ask all our guests before we bid you goodbye, Michaela, is, and I know this is a big looking into the crystal ball of what could happen. What do you think the coalition will be in Sachsen, and what do you think the coalition will be in Thüringen? If you want to answer, of course.
Oh, well, in Saxony, I mean, it's so early in the night, but it looks pretty firm now, particularly with the Left Party not having been able to join the parliament again, that the Conservative state premier, Michaela Küfner, will most likely be able to continue as now, which is in a coalition with the Social Democrats and the Greens. The Greens had looked a bit shaky there. And in Thuringia, it will be a lot more complicated, and it will be worth looking very closely. It's very much pointing towards Sarah Wagenknecht playing a key role there. potentially under the lead of the conservative CDU party. So whatever you see happening in these two states is a laboratory for a potential future in Germany where the far-right Alternative for Germany party gains a lot more if it doubles nationally. That's the scenarios Germany would be facing. But right now, I don't really see the far-right AfD doubling its support in Germany.
Okay, so just to summarize, CDU and BSW potentially might play a big role in Thüringen. And in Sachsen, let me go straight to that view again. Potentially the CDU, Greens, and SPD again, if I understood that correctly. Awesome. Michaela, so for everyone again here that hasn't heard yet, so thank Michaela. She is the chief political editor from Deutsche Welle. We have the link to Deutsche Welle in the description. It's a great read. They've got great articles and everything. So thank you so much for making it on the live stream. If there's anything you'd like to mention to the audience about Deutsche Welle or anything like that, please go ahead. But otherwise, I bid you farewell and thank you.
Well, if you want to know what's happening in German politics, we'll give you the instant analysis because we know the actual people we show you. So
yeah,
I appreciate talking to you tonight.
Yeah, thank you, and have a good time in the rest of the evening. Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. So everyone, that was two very, very interesting guests. So thank you for staying around. We also have Elliot from the EU Made Simple joining us in a minute. For people that watch the channel a lot, you might know him. He did the AI Act live stream last week. And yeah, we'll be basically talking a little bit more about some of the questions that we haven't answered yet in the chat. And if there's anything else you want to know. Yeah, did you enjoy it, first of all? Did you enjoy these type of guests? And let us know if there's anyone else you'd like on in the future. Maybe while I have you all here and while I'm waiting for Elliot, we are looking now that the European Parliament is finally going to get going again next month. We are looking to have more members of European Parliament on the live stream. So if you like that kind of thing, make sure you subscribe and make sure you follow us. And we also have a video coming out about these elections tomorrow. So make sure you watch that. Something else I was very interested in, I'd like to have a look at, and that's this. So if you can all see the live stream, this is again looking at Sachsen. And this really surprised me because if you look here, you can see the age ranges and you can see that the AfD, the right-wing, far-right party in Sachsen, had 31% of young people voting for them, which really surprised me because I wasn't even able to ask the guests. But normally you'd think of younger people being more, I don't know, left-wing liberal almost. But in this case, in Sachsen, they're not. And I mean, let's have a look at the other ages. Geez, it's 30% everywhere, really. Actually, quite funny. 70 plus are the ones that vote for AfD the least, which I think is another whole topic by itself, maybe worthy of a video. Sebastian Grünfeld makes a really good comment that the AfD is doing better in social media. And I can only confirm that because I know, what's his name again? The AfD leader in the European Union for the AfD. What's his name? God. The big guy. Doesn't matter. But he made a TikTok video which is all about about real men vote far right. And if you want a girlfriend, vote far right. Maximilian Krah. I got him now. Thank God. Maximilian Krah from the AfD. He was very interesting TikTok posts. You should definitely check them out. Anyway, it's because the leftist youth left for West Germany, is what Ibrahim said. With that being said, Elliot, welcome on the stream.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I should be here. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Lambertus, for having me as a special guest.
Yeah, you're a special guest now from the EU Made Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more chilled, with two EU Made Simple colleagues talking on the live stream.
It looks like you. Oh, there we go. You're not frozen anymore. Yeah. Well, I have to disappoint many people, though. I am not a German political expert, so I can't help much. And also, I want to apologize right now because the cameras are once again square because Google Meet likes to make the cameras square for some reason, so they look a bit worse. Anyways, yeah, thank you. So how was it, Lambertus? Can you can you explain to me what is your takeaway for tonight about these results really and these two interviews?
Well, I mean, my main takeaways are twofold, really. I mean, I know that our political correspondent or the chief editor mentioned that the East is not proportional. There's a whole lot more nationally and everything. But I think it's very, very evident how badly the Greens, the SPD, and the FDP lost. The FDP we didn't even talk about because they're not even on the picture because they did that badly.
Do we have any information on how they did previous elections in the Bundesländer?
Let's have a look at Sachsen. So let's have a look. Here we go. So
they were already very small, anyways. Yeah.
But this is the 70 plus. Let me have a look if I can find it. Maybe here, Greens. No. This can show you where. Here, maybe. Here's the full list. Alle ansehen. There we go.
It's still not there. Yeah, it's
Sonstige.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah. But considering they didn't make the image, it shows that they've lost heart. Right.
They lost heart. Yeah, they lost heart, definitely. And I don't know, maybe you're a bit more educated on this than I am. Do you have any, let's say, clue or inclination to, I guess, maybe specifically for the FDP, that they're just non-existent, at least in these two Bundesländer anymore?
Yeah. So for everyone here, the coalition in Germany for the federal government is SPD, Greens, and FDP. FDP is yellow. They're not on here. And the reason, I mean, there's so many reasons why they did badly, right? But
what's the main one?
The main FDP not. I love how you always try to get me to the point. The main reason for FDP not doing well is I think they feel like the thorn in the side of the other two. They're always blocking everything. One example is they call the Schuldenbremse here in Germany. So Germany would like, or the Greens and the SPD would like to make new debt. So basically borrow money to pay for expensive green and social programs. And the FDP basically says, no, we're not borrowing nothing. So that doesn't really play well in the hands of the SPD and Greens because they can't do their programs, which makes them look bad. And the FDP looks bad because everyone else is like, well, we can't do anything because of the FDP. So I think that's the reason.
You reckon the general population has thought of this as well, that the FDP is generally seen as someone who is constantly blocking the current coalition, and therefore,
on the European level, they're not different, right? They're blocking the combustion engine ban right at the very end. They're blocking that. They're blocking a supply chain legislation on the EU level. So this tiny party in Germany at the moment is blocking stuff on the EU level. So they're not well liked.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, do you remember how they got into the coalition? Like, why were they chosen in the first place?
I guess, well, the SPD won the most votes back in 2020. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The SPD won, but they had to form a coalition, right? So they looked at the Greens, but even with the Greens, they didn't get over the magic number of 50%.
I guess see. It's 50. Not enough for
so
coalition.
So that's why they needed someone else. And they obviously weren't going to go with the AfD, too far right. They obviously weren't going to go with the CDU because of the whole 16 years with CDU. They went with the FDP. And already that doesn't fit well, right? Because the SPD is center-left. And then you have the Greens who are, the Greens, also towards the left. And then you have the FDP who is like liberal, sure, but very, very much against spending, against raising taxes, that kind of
small government, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. It's like the VVD in Holland, I guess. Yeah.
See, yeah. But I guess I would have to look a bit more into FDP to make a statement on that.
They have a coalition.
They're both liberals, right? Yeah, they're both liberals. But I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I want to get your thoughts on this. I was just talking about this while you were gone. I mean, look at this here. If you look at 18 to 24, 31% voted for AfD, which I thought was interesting because the younger people are normally known for voting left-wing. Normally, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, that is, I think, been a change through all of Europe, really. That the young people are, or I guess, 8 to 24 young people are more and more right. I think not only in Germany this is the case.
I know it's changing. And sorry to interrupt you, Ellie. I'm just reading Sebastian Grunfeld in the comments. He seems like quite an expert. And he said FDP was chosen because they were the least controversial, which is funny because FDP said they would never go into a coalition with the Greens.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
There you
what getting into a like the prospects of getting into a coalition really makes a party think, like, oh, maybe we should go back on our promises.
Yeah.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
I feel like most of these statements are you have to take them with a grain of salt when you're in election season, all right? Because that gets you votes, right? But
Yeah.
okay,
I mean,
interesting.
And then, I mean, we talked about it. I think you asked me at the beginning, like, what else stood out, and that's the BSW, right? Bundesländer.
I didn't know them. Like, I am not really following German politics that like narrowly, and the BSW I never heard of before. So she was if I got it correctly from the conversation, she is split off from the Linke, right? Or like
correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Correct. So here, let's have a look at her. Sarah Wagenknecht. She used to be part of the left. So this is the lady, right?
Right.
Here.
Okay. I think I've seen her before. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have to give her one thing. She talks a good talk, right? I've seen her in like chat shows or like TV shows and things like that. She's very articulate. She argues well, makes her point very well. And yeah, she basically was with the left 8 months ago and then formed her own party and called it after her own name. That's a bit of a
very confident.
Okay, that's a better word. Very confident thing to do. And now she's sitting in third place in both states, which is pretty incredible. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, in third place, and I believe that she has a strong position for negotiating into coalitions as well. No, like there's many possibilities because I see here BSW. Yeah, but then right.
Saxony looks difficult. So Sachsen we're looking at. And the only possibility in Sachsen, or the most likely one, I guess, is CDU, SPD, BSW.
But they don't see at Spiegelpolitik. They don't see BSW and I guess SPD working together, or
BSW.
Because why wouldn't, for example, just like as a dumb question, why couldn't you add on the BSW to SDU and SPD?
Good question, actually. Oh, here it is. Sorry, the first one.
Oh, I'm blind as hell. Okay,
yeah,
my
you
bad.
are blind as hell.
I am blind. Yeah, my bad. Okay, so with SPD and not with the the Grüne. Like I'm talking about the coalition on the top right of the mögliche Koalitionen. The SPD, or SPD, SDU, and Grüne. Is it not possible to add BSW? Maybe it's too many, 4 parties. Who knows?
Yeah, here. This is actually a good one. I've got a really cool page that we can quickly have a look at. This is going into the video we're creating for tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And have a look at this. So
look. Okay. Right. Yeah. This is perfect.
Yeah. So basically here, just for the audience, everyone, this shows the possible coalitions on the left side. So CDU, SPD, Greens, CDU, SPD, BSW, AFD, CDU. This is not going to happen. No one wants to work with AFD. Yeah. AFD, SPD, BSW will likely also not happen, or almost certainly.
Because AFD, like every other party, has stated that they are not willing to work together with AFD, right?
Right.
Okay.
They have.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have my thoughts about that. Let's get to that in a minute, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So here, for example, CDU, SPD, Greens. Sorry, it's German, everyone, but it just shows you, and these are like stop sign means they can't they can't work together when it comes to economy. First one's economy. It'll be difficult to work together on migration. It will be difficult to work together on kids and youth.
Yeah.
But what they can work together on is energy, climate, and mobility. So only one thing they can work together on. And look, all the combinations have the same problem.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's either only on one they can really work together on, or nothing.
Exactly. And these are the local issues. I mean, Russia and things like that. I mean, that would be a big stop sign everywhere.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Well, that's difficult. We have because I'm from the Netherlands. We had our elections not too long ago, and many people back then were also thinking like the biggest winner of that election was the PVV, right? The party of Geert Wilders. Most of the viewers might have heard of him, where he won. And many parties said, well, we're not going to be working together with him. So the exact same discussion that's going to be held right now is what do we think of that, where the biggest party can potentially not be included into a ruling coalition? And I this is obviously the Bundesländer, so a lower region, not national, but it's the same discussion anyways, right?
Yeah. What do you think, actually? Elliot, let me ask you.
Hmm.
What do you think? Do you think there should be a red wall against far-right parties if 30% of the population voted for the far-right party?
Ooh, you're asking me to. Yes, this is a difficult one. Honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think I'm leaning more towards it is okay. And I think a lot of people in the chat might disagree with me on that, but I think, like Michaela said, it's a proportional system. So I think as long as the ruling government represents more than 50% of the people who are eligible to vote, then I would be okay with that. Yeah, I wanted to say as well. Should we ask that as a poll as well? So
yeah, I just did. So it'd be interesting to see what the audience thinks.
I'm leaning more towards it's all right. Specifically because it's really I don't really have any, let's say, objective. It's more of a feeling that I feel like it's okay as long as the government that is ruling you has voted in by more than 50% of the people. That's my take, really.
Yeah. I also have mixed feelings. Like, how much longer are you going to try and block these parties out? Right. I mean, at some point, you might not. I mean, at some point they might. If my God, I can't talk. If you keep blocking them, at some point they might win 50% of the vote, right? And then they are in, and they can do whatever they want. If you, exactly.
So I'm also on the other side. I would say that maybe let them rule. See how it goes, and then I think maybe or maybe not. We'll see then. Maybe most of the people who voted then will decide like, okay, well, maybe this wasn't it. We should try something else again. Because right now I feel like voting is very much based on, how do I put this nicely? Vibes. Is that like how does a person feel? How like I feel angry with the current establishment because of many legitimate reasons. So I'm going to vote the opposite of what the current government is, right? And it makes sense, like as a human being. But yeah, so maybe let the AfD go, and then see what happens. Granted, this maybe won't work if a party is going to be dismantling or threatening democracy. But I don't know enough about AfD or its current stances, how much of a threat they are to democracy. So I can't comment on that.
I actually think the DW chief editor made a fair point, actually. And I mean, 30% might have voted for them, but 70% of other people also, right, didn't.
Yeah.
And they probably are voting for parties that, for a reason of them not wanting to work with the AfD. Like people vote for the CDU also because the CDU said we'll never work with the AfD, right? You know what I mean? So it's I can see both sides. And here, one of our Patreons, Villa, is also saying they should never be let in power ever. They are a threat to democratic values. And like you mentioned too, maybe they have done things in the past which could lead to that, right?
There's maybe it's a meme. I think it's not really a meme, but in the Netherlands, right, we have Geert Wilders right now is in the ruling coalition, and the very fact that at first people were really scared of him as a far right politician, but very quickly he gained the nickname of Geert Milders, which roughly translates to being more mild, in the sense that he was very willing to compromise on the hard stance that he took in the past in order to form a coalition. So maybe there's a trend of when a party is going into a ruling government, they become a bit more, let's say, set to the center, a bit more mild, because the very fact that ruling is, you have to be a bit more open-minded towards other viewpoints, because otherwise you can't rule, right? Right. In our systems, that is. Not everywhere, but in I think in Germany and in the Netherlands, that's
100%. 100%. Like you're completely right. It's the same in, I think, Germany. Obviously, the Greens would have loved to do more green stuff or green policy, but couldn't because they made a deal with the FDP and SPD to compromise too. On certain areas. Right.
So like people are saying, AfD. Some people are of the opinion that AfD is a threat to democracy, and that could very well be. I guess I haven't followed that enough. So what does the poll say? Should AfD be given a chance to be in the government? voted from, and most people would agree with that. So that is
Crazy.
interesting. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Varner KP is asking us, what do you think? Will deportation happen fast? So, Elliot, let me quickly explain to you. So a big issue here in Germany is that people, asylum seekers that have been rejected, they're not being sent back to their origin quick enough or at all, coming to think of it, right?
Okay.
And then, for example, last week in Zodaling, I think the city is called. Zolingen?
Zolingen. Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies. The person that killed 3 people there with a knife attack, he was supposed to be deported a year ago.
Right? I see. Okay.
So there's a big issue, and now I think that's why Warney KP is asking that. Go ahead.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like this policy lays on the federal level of deporting people and not with the Bundesländer. Could that be right? So, yeah. So if that's the case, then I don't think it really matters too much right now who wins in the local regions. It matters who is in the ruling coalition federally, right? Like nationally.
Yeah, but I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think what does matter is that they're under pressure now. They know if they're not solving this before next year, when the elections are,
right? Yeah,
they're going to be penalized for it.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. So I reckon with these results, I mean, these are exit polls, right? It's still being counted. I think that if this is a big issue and these people are in Germany illegally and they should, like by law, be put out, then probably there's going to be more money going towards these procedures, right? Towards the personnel that's supposed to do this. So, yeah, I guess if this is the case, then there will be more deportations. Not to say that people who are in Germany legally as asylum seekers, although some in chat might not think that asylum seekers are here legally either. Those probably won't just be put out because there's many different laws on European level as well, where you can't just throw people out that you don't like, right? So, yeah, there's many more questions and comments in chat.
Yeah, Kiju, I know some of it, so if you have a question, let us know. Boomerang, how come the CDU and other parties didn't want to work with the Greens? Boomerang, is your question about the results from today, or is it around the federal government? Quickly, Elliot, if you want to answer, go ahead, but I can quickly make 2 comments.
Make your comments. I'm not the person to be asking these questions to, because I'm learning here just as the audience is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about the CDU. I mean, again, not to go too far answering this question, but I think the Greens have done a lot of policies over the last years that have annoyed some of the voter base of the CDU. And I think the most prominent example is when there was the energy crisis with Russia invading Ukraine, and Germany was reliant on Russian gas. What did they do? They closed down 3 nuclear plants, right? That's mainly because of the Greens, because it's in their manifesto and everything.
Yep.
And of course, the CDU was completely against this. And there's a couple of examples like that. I'm just saying one right now. And I think the CDU doesn't want to work with the Greens because they've bashed the Greens so much over the last 4 or 5 years that I think they are scared of losing voters if they do work with them. And they're just very different policies, especially on energy. Yeah.
I got that the Greens policy of shutting down nuclear energy really gets me going sometimes. As well. I sometimes can't really put my head around it. In my eyes, the biggest argument against nuclear energy is its cost, and it takes very long to build these things. I mean, if they're there, don't just shut them down in exchange for more coal and gas. I don't know. Sometimes it felt a little bit ridiculous for me.
I can't believe it. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. Like,
yeah.
Can't use gas from Russia. Oh, I got a great idea. Let's turn off our nuclear plants too. I mean,
yeah.
Like even just from a let's not get into it. That was a bit silly. It was a bit silly.
Yeah. So Minik Rošprovac I'm not sure how you pronounce that name. He asked, "What is your opinion on the Slovak government?" And honestly, I don't know much about the Slovak government. I don't hold any strong opinions on the Slovak government. I don't know if you have any insight.
Now you're putting me on the spot. So Slovak government, I mean, Smer, the Smer party is number one there with Fico, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah.
My opinion. I mean, I just did a video on the rule of law, and they're not doing great on the rule of law, for example.
True.
But
okay. Actually, I do have an opinion now.
Okay, go ahead. You go first.
True. Yeah. So, okay, I'm not afraid to take a hard stances. I do not like Mr. Fico. I do not like him. And yeah, it's I guess he is a way too, let's say, populist swaying to whatever the people want to hear. For me to like him, and especially his yeah, I'm a big Ukraine supporter. That's also, I can also say that without a problem. So therefore I don't agree with him either. And like you said, the backsliding with democratic and press freedoms, I think that's also very deplorable. So I guess in general, honestly, I have to be honest, I don't know. I have not looked into it much, so I can't take an extremely hard stance. But in general, like the news that we get in the, I guess, international sphere, I wouldn't say very positive. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Rosprovac. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for me, I mean, again, like I'm a bit like you. I don't know the depth of it, and for me, it's also the Russia-Ukraine topic, right? I think it's a vital issue to be on the right side on. Next question by Relet Sal: Why are the pro-Russian ties, AfD and Wagenknecht Linke, allowed to thrive in Germany? God, these are tough questions.
I think I have maybe a beginning for this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Especially because we're talking about East Germany right now. I think the policy of the Wandel durch Handel, if I'm saying that correctly, and the general split of Germany, because obviously it was under the Warsaw Pact for most of basically the history right now of the modern state of Germany as we know it, of course. It's because they have very strong ties to Russia. And maybe you have a bit more insight on this. The general feel, or maybe the idea of people, is that Russia isn't the bad guy, as maybe people in Western Germany would have said 10 years ago. Probably that idea has changed a little bit, of course, with current events, but maybe the general zeitgeist in very many German words here in Eastern Germany is remaining a bit more positive towards Russia. So that's why the parties are allowed to thrive as well, right?
But you say that, Elliot. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, but you say that. But what I don't understand is Poland and Czechia, which border Eastern Germany, right? Yeah, they have a completely different stance. So go ahead. Yeah.
There's maybe the hatred, let's say, the hatred for Russians within Polish society is a bit more there because of a way longer history of rivalry between them being honestly subjugated throughout most of their history by Germany too a few times, but Russia through most of it as well.
Maybe, yeah. It's
I wouldn't know for Czechia. Because I'm not familiar with Czech history that much.
Yeah, I think just to answer a bit more to that question, I think one of the big things that Germany values, like a lot of Western countries, is freedom of speech, right? And in here, parties are allowed to say what they think, and if they think that Russia, the Russia-Ukraine issue isn't worth sending military aid to, or when you go for peace deals, things like that, that's completely fine. You're allowed to say what you want here, and that's why Germany also allows it to happen. Like, of course, yeah.
You're not going to get it, or you're not going to get a government saying, you can't hold a positive view of Russia simply because they're Russia, right?
Yeah.
Let's say someone corrected me. Maybe you should be careful what you say. Other German podcasts were threatened with a 250k fine or prison time. About what? What should I not say?
Nostro, that's interesting. I don't want a 250k fine.
I don't want to. I don't think I said anything
particularly. Then we can shut down the channel, man.
It's over. Yeah. Write us up, man. We're done.
Yeah.
What else do we have? Guys, let's just Warney KP. Guys, let's just imagine somehow AfD won the election in 2025. And what are the chances of they deporting illegal immigrants? Do you think it's possible? This kind of comes down to the question we gave earlier. If they are illegal immigrants, then it doesn't matter who is there. They are on the way to be deported. That's the entire thing of being an illegal immigrant. Unless you get asylum or you get citizenship somehow, you're not supposed to be in that country, in theory, right? So
yeah, because I mean, in the German constitution, it basically says if you ask for asylum, people have the right to ask for asylum.
Right, yeah.
So they can come and ask for asylum. That's complete, and they're allowed to, and we have to give it to them until we basically say yes or no, right? Like yes, it's valid, and we look after you, or no, you don't have a right for asylum because of reason X, B, C, and then we can of course send them back. So that's completely doable. But I think there's a lot of issues with like logistics and
there are,
sending people. It's very difficult sending people back. I mean, why? Can you imagine, like, why would Afghanistan or first Afghanistan or Syria even talk with us of us sending people back to them?
Yeah.
You know, it's all very difficult. Not saying it's not possible. There's always a way, but I think that's the main issue.
Of course, but like my answer before, if the AfD wins big in 2025, then the amount of resources that go to this process will probably increase. So the amount of people that are going to be put out will increase probably. I guess just logically that will follow, depending on how could you spend your money and stuff like that. But they will find. I believe they
still
can
face the
they
same
can find a way.
problems, though, right? They'll still face the same problems. I think it's
Right.
harder done. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
There is a and I'm not well versed on the I don't know the English word for proceduring out people, but I don't think in general. I know this about many African countries, where if you're supposed to go back, they will just put you on an airplane towards that country, and they will say you're going to get out there and you're not going to be allowed back into our country. So you get your stuff, you get put on an airplane. I believe paid by the government that's sending you out, and then they put you on a one-way trip to wherever you came from, basically. And like the other government doesn't really have much to say about that fact because they can't stop that civilian airplane that's coming in.
Right.
And I say this with, let's say, 70% confidence. Okay, so I might be wrong, but that's 70% confidence right there.
Sorry, I'm listening to you. I'm just reading the comments because
Yeah.
Kivu is making some interesting points about the asylum law in Germany. Kivu, I need to have a look into it. It's interesting what you're writing. I know the number one, the number two, Duldung. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I need to look into it. Did your Kilo? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. You want to? Would you like to wrap up? I feel like we've covered a lot today.
Yeah, we have covered a lot, and I need to create a video on this. So I need to release it in the morning. So it's going to be a long night for me.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot. And if there's any final questions from anyone now, and if basically, let me do a bit of promotion. Everyone, if you want to become a Patreon and help us out, please do so. We rely on you, and the Patreon's on here right now. I've seen a couple. Thank you for supporting us, and please consider supporting us. And yeah, any last words from you, Elliot?
No, I would like to thank everyone very much for watching. It's always a pleasure to see the people enjoying the live streams and asking your questions. So please keep coming. Once again, we're trying to do a live stream every week, or even a few times a week, like this week. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. So keep watching, I guess.
Yep. Awesome. Sebastian Grunfeld, I saw your comment. I'll put it onto the list. And we're not from Germany. We're both from Holland.
Yeah, but living elsewhere. That's interesting.
Yeah. You live very quickly, Elliot. Where do you live?
I live right now in Poland currently.
Very cool. Very cool. I live in Munich in Germany. So
yeah.
We're proper EU citizens.
Very EU citizens, yes.
Yeah.
Lovely.
All
okay.
Right.
Oh, cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye, everyone.